Hey everyone, it's me. Hope you're having a good day. Just wanted to do a quick video about Orion. There are quite a few references to Orion in the Bible, which is pretty cool. So, in this video, I'll look at all those references and try to put them together to see what picture they paint of Orion. The first mention of Orion comes from Job chapter 9, verse 9. We read, "Do you hunt the shining prey for the jackals, for satisfaction of their kind?" In this passage, Job isn't referring to the constellation. Rather, he's talking about the planet Jupiter, which appears to move swiftly across the night sky compared to the background stars. This movement makes it appear as if it's hunting animals. The next reference to Orion comes from Amos chapter 5, verses 8. Here we read, "Woe to you who turn justice into bitterness, and cast down righteousness into the earth. You who build up strife and deceit in your fortresses. You who say in your heart, deceit and wickedness against the Lord, and who fear his hot wrath. For what does the day that you fear come that will bring troubles, as labor pains and as destruction? Woe to you who make the wicked as righteous, and make the wicked man prosperous, destroyed by famine and thirsty." Now, most scholars agree that the prophet Amos is not referring to the constellation, but rather to the king of Israel, Jeroboam II, who is known for oppressing the poor and turning justice into a commodity. His reign over Israel is said to have taken place between 786 and 746 BCE. However, there's a minor problem with this because during the time period that he ruled, the constellation of Orion wasn't visible in Israel. Orion is circumpolar in the northern hemisphere during winter nights, and Israel is located just south of the celestial equator. At this time, it would only be visible for a couple of hours on the southern horizon during the summer solstice, and since astronomers in that day didn't have sophisticated instruments, they could very well have missed it. The exact duration of its visibility would depend on the observer's latitude and the time of observation. But considering how brief the appearance would have been, it seems unlikely that it would have been prominently featured in any religious or cultural contexts. So, it's possible that the reference to Orion here could be symbolic, representing an oppressive ruler who looms large in the sky like a hunter aiming to capture his prey. Moving forward, the next reference to Orion can be found in the book of Isaiah, chapter 21, verse 16. We read, "The cruel ones shall come to naught, and the ruler of the pride of the north shall utterly perish. The remnant of the people shall be like the burning stubble among the reeds by the flowing water, like a fire that burns and consumes stubble. Thus the Lord of hosts shall give his burning, grievous, and great, and terrible judgment unto him." Most scholars believe that Isaiah is referring to the constellation as it was known in ancient times, perhaps even having a similar name to its Akkadian name, Mal-Gur-Tab. A few reasons support this theory. First, the context. The book of Isaiah contains many prophecies about the fall of Babylon, and the reference to Orion fits well within this context. Second, the language. The use of the term hunter to describe Orion is consistent with its depiction in other ancient cultures. Third, the timing. Orion is most visible in the night sky during the winter months, which correspond to the season when crops are harvested and stored away. This would have been a natural time for ancient farmers to think about the coming year and to pray for a successful harvest. Finally, archaeological evidence has shown that ancient Israelites used to lie on their backs and gaze at the stars, which lends credence to the idea that they would have been familiar with the constellations. However, it's worth noting that some scholars argue that the reference to Orion is actually a mistranslation. They claim that the original Hebrew text doesn't actually say Orion, but rather refers to something else entirely. But whether or not this is true, we simply don't know. Now, moving on, we have a bit of an interesting gap between the next two references to Orion. There's another reference to Orion in the book of Isaiah, chapter 34, verse 17. We read, "My sword shall be bathed in heaven, and there shall be vengeance and judgment, and there shall be burning, and smoke, and an abundance of sulfur, and it shall be an evil snare. For there shall be a snare on all the mountains of the land. For great and abundant are the slain of the daughter of Zion." Many scholars believe that Isaiah is again referring to the constellation Orion here, given the mention of heaven, which could refer to the sky, and the imagery of a sword being dipped into the heavens. However, some scholars disagree, arguing that the reference to Orion is a later addition to the text. They cite the fact that the imagery used in this passage, such as swords in the sky, is more common in extra-biblical sources where Orion is depicted as a warrior. However, this passage also contains imagery that doesn't appear elsewhere, such as the mention of sulfur and smoke, which could indicate that the author is using the constellation as a symbol of something else entirely. Perhaps he's trying to depict the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, which is mentioned earlier in the chapter. Alternatively, maybe he's describing the Babylonian Empire, which is also mentioned earlier in the book of Isaiah. It's possible that Isaiah is using the constellation as a symbol of whatever he's talking about. Finally, we have one last reference to Orion in the Bible. This is found in the book of Acts, chapter 17, verse 26. We read, "And he made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, and having determined their appointed times, he established their boundaries so that they should seek the Lord if they might endeavor to find him." though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. Paul is quoting a line from a Greek poem called the Homeric Hymn to Zeus, in which the poet describes how Zeus created the human race, and then scattered them across the earth. Paul uses this quote to illustrate the universality of God's creation and his desire for all people to know him. Interestingly, the original language used in the hymn is not Greek, but rather Old Babylonian. The reference to Orion in the Bible is therefore a quote within a quote. Paul is quoting a line from a Greek poem that itself contains a reference to the constellation. So there you have it, all three references to Orion in the Bible. Overall, it seems clear that Orion was well known in the ancient world, and that its presence in the night sky had a significant impact on people's lives. Whether it was seen as a hunter or a warrior, Orion was clearly a figure of great importance, and it's fascinating to see how it's reflected in the Bible. Now before we go, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who's been supporting this channel. Your generosity and encouragement mean the world to me, and I'm so grateful to have you on this journey. If you're not currently subscribed, please consider doing so and joining our growing community. I'd love to have you. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button and share it with others. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.